There are 8 new weapon types in Shadow of the Erdtree. Some are a bit much if we're being honest, but the Light Greatsword is an elegant new addition to the Elden Ring arsenal. If you want to be a more graceful melee fighter, this might be the weapon for you. This Light Greatsword build guide will teach you how to slice and dice while looking nice. As the name implies, Light Greatswords are, well, lighter versions of those hefty regular greatswords. They have the same reach, but they do a little less damage as a trade-off for faster attack speed. I'm convinced that if this category existed in the base game, it would have been Millennia's weapon of choice. Whether or not you're cosplaying as the Scarlet Rot Goddess, you're going to want a good grasp on how to wield this weapon type. You're still very much an in-your-face melee fighter while using a Light Greatsword, but the length of the blade does provide a decent amount of reach compared to your typical short sword. The damage type is also considered standard with some piercing attacks, so the style and speed are something to keep in mind as you learn the timing. As for stats, all Light Greatswords scale with strength and dexterity at a minimum, but as you might have already guessed, intelligence and faith also play a part with some models. Bearing in mind that level 150 is the baseline recommendation for Shadow of the Erdtree, your stats should look something like this if you want to go pure melee. Minimum 50 points of strength, 50 points of dex, and a good portion of vigor and endurance to keep yourself healthy inside a set of heavy armor. If you're going to incorporate spells, then you want something like this: 25 strength, 25 dex, 30 intelligence, and 30 faith, with plenty of vigor and endurance once again. There are 3 Light Greatswords to choose from in Shadow of the Erdtree. 2 are found within the same dungeon, more or less, while the third cannot be obtained till just before the final boss of the DLC. Keep that in mind in case you don't want to be spoiled in this guide. The first is the very Reddit-sounding Milady, and you'll find it inside Castle Ensis. This will be the second legacy dungeon most players explore in the Land of Shadow. After the Troll Knight fight at the front gate, bear left, then make a U-turn before entering the cave. Along the ramparts here is a tower, and a Light Greatsword called Milady is in a chest up there. Milady is the basic option for this weapon category, with pure melee stats. You can get the next Light Greatsword upon clearing Castle Ensis. After beating Twin Moon Knight R'Lana, you can trade her Remembrance and Round Table Hold to get your own copy of her paired swords. These swords are perfect for dual wielding, letting you deal magic damage with one hand and fire damage with the other. They scale with intelligence and faith, in addition to strength and dexterity, so they're great for magic and hybrid builds too. Finally, you can obtain Letta's sword near the very end of the game. Depending on your choices over the course of the DLC, you'll face a combination of the Needle Knight and other followers of Miquella. No matter how things shake out, Letta will always be part of the fight, and you'll get her sword upon winning it. In addition to strength and dexterity, Letta's sword scales with faith, making it another good option for hybrid builds, especially those that use incantations. While hybrid builds are probably going to want lighter armor, we're going to focus on heavy armor for this guide in the name of tanking. Some of the best options in the base game include the Fire Prelate set, Veteran set, Radon set, and the Tree Sentinel set. If you don't already have all of these base game goodies unlocked as you're watching this guide, consult our wiki on IGN to get whatever you're missing. We also recommend Millennia's set from the base game if you're looking to cosplay a bit. Again, Light Greatswords just make sense in her hand. You can also cosplay as R'Lana in the DLC. Once you defeat her, you'll be able to purchase her armor set from Enya and Round Table Hold. The same goes for General Gaius' set once you defeat him. Our last recommendation is the Verdigris set, which has exceptionally high defense and poise. This is the armor that Miquella's follower Mor wears. The good news is that you can obtain it no matter how his questline plays out for you. If you end up fighting him, you can get the armor off of his corpse. If you don't, his body can still be found at this spot near the Church of the Crusade as you near the end of the story. As for talismans, there are a good number from the base game that will help you wield your Light Greatsword more effectively. For a defensive tank build, we recommend the Erdtree's Favor for its multiple stat boosts, the Bull Goat's Talisman for more poise, and the Dragon Crest Shield or Great Shield Talismans for a higher defense. For a more offensive approach, use the Axe Talisman for better charge attacks, the Carrion Filigreed Crest to reduce the FP cost of skills, the Shard of Alexander to boost the power of those same skills, and Millicent's Prosthesis for higher dexterity and more damage with each successive sword swipe. Shadow of the Erdtree has a trio of talismans that are worth trying too. First is the Blade of Mercy, found in a chest at the top of the Scorched Ruins. This is one of the first places you can explore upon entering the DLC and starting at Gravesite Plain. The Blade of Mercy boosts your attack power after a critical hit. Next up is the Two-Handed Sword Talisman. As the name implies, it boosts your two-handed weapon attacks, and you should be doing a lot of those with your Light Greatswords. To get it, you have to fight your way to the top of another destroyed village, namely the Templetown Ruins. Finally, we recommend Rellana's cameo, because it's made with Light Greatswords in mind, hers specifically. Conveniently, it's also found at Castle Ensis. After facing the Knight Moonrathil, proceed forward into the chapel they were guarding. The talisman is on the altar inside. This talisman powers up your attacks after maintaining a stance. And we're gonna talk about stances right now. It's a new type of Ash of War found in Shadow of the Erdtree. Rellana's twin blades have a default one called Moon and Fire stance, and it is awesome. After initiating, you can slash with magic using a regular attack or whip up a bunch of fire with a heavy attack. It's flashy, it's powerful, and it's very useful. The same can't really be said for the baked-in Ashes of War for Milady or Leda's sword. The first is just bland, while the second can actually work against you in battle since it can remove both buffs and debuffs from your foes. Instead, we recommend swapping those with Wing Stance, which can also be boosted by Rellana's cameo. With Wing Stance, you can ready your attack, then unleash a series of swipes when the target draws near. Once again, you'll find it at Castle Ensis. From the Castle Lord's Chamber site of Grace just before the Rellana fight, step out onto the balcony. From here you can safely drop down to an outdoor area, and at the end of this outcropping is a tower. Climb the ladder inside to reach the roof, where you'll find a chest containing the Wing Stance. You could also attach the Flame Spear Ash of War to your Light Greatsword for a fun fire option. You'll acquire it near the top of Shadow Keep, after defeating one final Messmer Fire Soldier. With this power, you can char your enemies from afar. If you want some other elemental options, there are plenty in the base game. Thunderbolt, Hoarfrost Stomp, Shriek of Sorrow, or Sacred Blade will add lightning, frost, occult, or holy damage respectively. For more Millennia cosplay, you could also try out Double Slash or Sword Dance. There's also another fantastic Rellana cosplay option in Shadow of the Erdtree. Her Remembrance can also be traded for her Twin Moon spell. That's a really fun one to use, provided you meet the hefty requirement of 72 intelligence. Just remember to duplicate her Remembrance so you can get both the magic and the paired swords. Shadow of the Erdtree introduces duplication coffins for this purpose, and the easiest one to reach is probably this one behind the Cathedral of Manus Meter. As for base game magic, hybrid builds have some great options. Scholar's Armament and Unseen Blade are good offensive options. Thops's Barrier, Golden Vow, and Barrier of Gold are great buffs. Lastly, cosplayers can consider Millennia's Scarlet Aeonia or Renala's Full Moon if they want to invoke the other twin. Finally, there are some Wondrous Physick concoctions that pair nicely with the Light Greatsword, although all the tiers we're going to name here are just found in the base game. First, it's always a good idea to improve your stamina from time to time, and you can use the Green Burst or Green Spill crystal tiers for that. Some combination of the Strength Knot, Dexterity Knot, Intelligence Knot, and Faith Knot crystal tiers will boost the scaling stats for your sword, depending on which one you're wielding. For tanks, the Opaline, Speckled, and Leadenhard tiers will boost your defense and poise. Lastly, the Spiked Cracked tier and Stone Barb Cracked tier will enhance your charge attacks and make it easier to break enemy stances, respectively. As you can tell, there are lots of options for wielding a Light Greatsword in Elden Ring, even if there are only 3 actual blades to choose from. For more build guides from Shadow of the Erdtree or the base game, you're already in the right place.